All right. Been noticing a lot of phone calls during my Bible readings. And, ain't gonna stop me none. Remember days it would take me 4 or 5 hours to cut basil and broccoli? I'm persistent. I do it. Praise Yahweh. Especially praising Yahweh. Oh, Father Yahweh. Your greatness and your glory is all we bow to. Father, keep us in your works, keep us in your eyes, keep us in your prayers. Keep your spirit in us and keep us in your spirit. Father Yahweh, put a hedge of protection around these people as we get more and more attacks daily, and make them not afraid, but make them draw closer to you, that they know who they belong to, and who they belong to knows them. Father Yahweh, you are the highest authority. We bow to you, we worship you, we praise you, come together under you. In the mighty name of Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen. All right. Psalm 29. Ascribe to Yahweh, O you sons of the mighty. Ascribe to Yahweh esteem and strength. Ascribe to Yahweh the esteem of his name. Bow yourselves to Yahweh in the splendor of set apartness. The voice of Yahweh is over the waters. The El of esteem thunders. Yahweh is over many waters. The voice of Yahweh is with power. The voice of Yahweh is with greatness. The voice of Yahweh is breaking the cedars. Yahweh is breaking the cedars of Lebanon in pieces, and he makes them skip like a calf. Lebanon and Syrian like a wild ox. The voice of Yahweh cuts through like flames of fire. The voice of Yahweh shakes the wilderness. Yahweh shakes the wilderness of Kadesh. The voice of Yahweh makes the deer give birth, and strips the forest bare. And in his call, everyone says, esteem. Yahweh sat enthroned at the flood, and Yahweh sits as sovereign forever. Yahweh gives strength to his people. Yahweh blesses his people with peace. I love that Yahweh blesses his people with peace, because that is one of the internal factors that makes us truly believe, as far as I'm concerned. You can say you believe, you can go do your works by belief, but when you're at peace, that doubt is gone. That doubt of, does he have me? Will he come through? That doubt is very natural. I mean, even Peter denies Jesus 3 times. No, it doesn't, and we're going to talk about the flood in a minute. But the greatest. I mean, like, how many people who leave Egypt make it to the promised land? 2. Of all the people that were in Egypt, 2 made it to the promised land. Caleb and Joshua. 600,000 people, and 2 made it. Yah's parties are very exclusive. Ascribe to Yahweh, O you sons of the mighty. Now, I don't know if this is just strong people, or if this is like small g mighty ones. Give Jehovah his due, you sons of mighty ones. Man, this might actually be a better version to read. I'm going to get a book called, or to sing to. I'm going to get a book called The Book of Psalms for Singing. So yeah, I would say that this is like other mighty ones around the spirit realm. Ascribe to Yahweh esteem and strength. Ascribe to Yahweh esteem of his name. The name above all names. Bow yourselves to Yahweh in the splendor of set apartness. Philippians 2. If then there is any encouragement in Messiah, if any comfort of love, if any fellowship of spirit, if any affection and compassion, make my joy complete by being of the same mind, having the same love, one in being and of purpose, doing none at all through selfishness or self-conceit, but in humility consider the others better than yourselves. Each one should look out not only for his own interests, but also for the interests of others. For let this mind be in you, which was also in Messiah, who, being in the form of Elohim, did not regard equality with Elohim a matter to be grasped, but emptied himself, taking the form of a servant, and came to be in the likeness of men. And having been found in fashion as a man, he humbled himself, and became obedient unto death, death even of a stake. Elohim, therefore, has highly exalted him and given him the name which is above every name, that at the name of Yeshua every knee should bow, and of those in the heaven, and of those on the earth, and of those under the earth, and every tongue should confess, Isaiah 45:23, that Yeshua Messiah is master to the esteem of Elohim the Father. So that, my beloved, as you always obeyed, not only in my presence, but now, much rather in my absence, work out your deliverance with fear and trembling, for it is Elohim who is working in you both to desire and to work for his good pleasure. Do all matters without grumblings and disputings, in order that you be blameless and faultless, children of Elohim without blemish in the midst of crooked and perverse generation, among whom you shine as lights in the world, holding on to the word of life, for a boast to me in the day of Messiah that I have not run in vain or labored in vain. In fact, even if I am being poured out as a drink offering on the offering and service of your belief, I am glad and rejoice with you all. So you too should be glad and rejoice with me. But I trust in the Master Yeshua to send Timotheus to you shortly, so that I too am encouraged by news from you. For I have no one else of the same mind who takes a genuine interest in your welfare, for all seek their own interests, not those of Messiah Yeshua. But you know he has proven himself that as a son with his father, he served with me for the good news. So I expect to send him as soon as I see how it goes with me, and I trust in the Master that I myself shall also come shortly. But I thought it necessary to send to you Epaphroditus, my brother, fellow worker and fellow soldier, and your emissary and servant to my need, since he was longing for you, and being troubled because you had heard that he was sick. For indeed he was sick, near to death, but Elohim had compassion on him, and not only on him, but on me as well, lest I should have sadness upon sadness. Therefore I sent him more eagerly, so that on seeing him again you might rejoice, and I be less sad. Receive him therefore in the Master with all joy, and hold such as he in esteem, because for the work of Messiah he was near death, risking his life to fill up what was lacking in your service toward me. Okay, so I don't have the full context of the book of Philippians. I really wanted to read that, beginning part there. But once I got to, I trust in the Master Yeshua, send Timotheus to you shortly, so that I too am encouraged by news from you. This adds another dimension to these books, because they're not books. They're letters. These are letters that Paul or Peter or John wrote to people. Like, think about scribing out an email or a text message that's really long. People don't really write letters anymore, but they would handwrite letters. Look at the book of Philippians. It's probably like a page front and back, a loose leaf paper, an 8.5 by 11 front and back, if that. And so, but it just really personalizes the fact that these books are explanatory to people who had specific needs of understanding. Everybody was going through their own struggle. Hey, when I was there, I saw this and this and this, and you guys wrote to me about this and this and this, and here is why this is wrong. And he doesn't use specific examples, He's not like as much when, he's not like, well, you told me that Johnny and Susie were fighting, but wives be in submission to your husband and husbands be in submission to your wives. You know what I mean? Like, it's a broad spectrum statement, and that's why it is so applicable. But when you read verses like 2:19 in Philippians 2:19, you just get this sense of reality in these letters. And so that's why I kept reading. The name above all names. Bow yourselves to Yahweh in the splendor of set apartness. The voice of Yahweh is over the waters. We talked about in Psalm 24. The earth belongs to Yahweh and all that fills it, the world and those who dwell in it. He has founded it upon the seas, and upon the waters he does establish it. Go back and watch Psalms 24, because we get real deep into the rain and the clouds and the waters and the mist, and the more that we read this, the more that it is it's like you can cook a steak. Anybody can cook a steak, right? To the fact where it's edible. But when you truly have a filet mignon or a flat iron, and you just marinate it properly and season it, rub it, get those nice grill mark sears, you finish it in the oven, you've got the juice just oozing out, and then you let it rest and you cut it right at that 45-degree angle against the grain, and you've got that perfect pink where every fiber of the grain all the way through is fully threaded. And that piece of flat iron just melts in your mouth. That is spending time in the Word. Versus, steakums, where you just get that verse that makes you feel good. And that was kind of my point with Philippians too. We're not understanding the fullness of the context of the story and the historical story and the futuristic story of this yield. I love Yahuwah. I love sharing Yahuwah with you guys. I wish that Yahuwah would bring me a wife to share him with. Yeah. That had to be said. The El of Esteem thunders. Yahuwah is over many waters. All the earth belongs to Yahuwah. The voice of Yahuwah is with power. The voice of Yahuwah is with greatness. The voice of Yahuwah is breaking the cedars. Yahuwah is breaking the cedars of Lebanon in pieces. Okay. We've got... this. Revelation 1:12, and I turned to see the voice which spoke to me, and having turned I saw 7 golden lampstands. And in the midst of the 7 lampstands, one like the Son of Man, dressed in a robe, down to the feet, and girded about the chest with a golden band. And his head and hair were white as wool, as snow, and his eyes as a flame of fire. And his feet like burnished brass, as if refined in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. And in his right hand he held 7 stars, and out of his mouth went a sharp 2-edged sword. And his face was as the sun shining in its strength. And when I saw him, I fell at his feet as dead, and he placed his right hand on me, saying, Do not be afraid. I am the first and the last, and the living one. And I became dead, and see, I am living forever and ever. Amen. And I possess the keys of Sheol and of death. He's like, bro, I got a key to your house. Imagine not having the key to your enemy's house. Okay. So, Sound of Many Waters. We are going to go to Yehezkel. 124 and 43, 2. The voice of Yahuwah is with great power, and we see the voice of Yahuwah is over many waters. So, we're going to spend some time in Ezekiel, because a lot going on here. Okay. And then it's 43-2. We're gonna get a bookie marky. Means it's 3 o'clock. We might only get done Psalm 29 in this reading. But it's okay. I got my 4 o'clock calendar going off. Okay. In Ezekiel 1, we get these 4 living creatures that nobody has any idea what's going on here. I'm excited to read this with you. It's going to be probably the end of the year, I think. November-ish. October. Oh, great. Right around Halloween time. We are going to... Man, I'm just thinking about the demonic attacks that are going on now. I'm going to have to, I don't know, fast for Halloween or some shit. It's going to be, some crazy shit. Okay. We'll see what happens. So 4 living creatures. We could start at verse 13 of Ezekiel chapter 1. Verse 14 of Ezekiel chapter 1.
And the living creatures ran back and forth like the appearance of a flash of lightning. And I looked at the living creatures and saw a wheel on the earth beside each living creature with its 4 faces. The appearance of the wheels and their works was like the appearance of beryl, and all 4 had the same form. The appearance of their works was, as it were, a wheel in the middle of a wheel. When they went in any one of 4 directions. They did not turn aside when they went. And their rims were high and awesome, and their rims were covered with eyes, all around the 4 of them. And when the living creatures went, the wheels went besides them. And when the living creatures were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up. Wherever the Spirit was to go, they went, because the Spirit went. And the wheels were lifted together with them, for the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels. When those went, these went. When those went, those stood. When those stood, those stood. And when those were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up together with them, for the spirit of the living creature was in the wheels. And a likeness was over the heads of the living creatures, with an expanse like the appearance of an awesome crystal stretched out over their heads. And under the expanse their wings were straight, one toward another. Each one had 2 which covered one side, and each one had 2 which covered the other side of the body. And when they went, I heard the noise of their wings, like the noise of many waters, like the noise of the Almighty. A tumult, like the noise of an army. And when they stood, they let down their wings. And a voice came from above, and the expanse that was set over their heads. When they stood, they dropped their wings, and above the expanse over their heads was the likeness of a throne, in appearance like a sapphire stone. And on the likeness of the throne was a likeness as the appearance of a man high above it. And from the appearance of his waist and upward, I saw what looked like glowing metal, with the appearance of fire all around within it. And from the appearance of his waist and downward, I saw what looked like fire and brightness all around. As the appearance of a rainbow in a cloud on a rainy day, so was the appearance of the brightness all around it. This was the appearance of the likeness of the esteem of YHWH. And when I saw it, I fell on my face, and I heard a voice of one speaking. We are actually going to read Ezekiel 2. And he said to me, Son of man, stand on your feet so that I speak to you. And the Spirit entered into me when he spoke to me and set me on my feet. And I heard him who was speaking to me. And he said to me, Son of man, I am sending you to the children of Israel, to a nation of rebels who have rebelled against me. They and their fathers have transgressed against me until this day. And the children are stiff of face and hard of heart, to whom I am sending you. And you shall say to them, Thus said the Master YHWH. And they, whether they hear or whether they refuse, for they are a rebellious house, shall know that a prophet has been in their midst. And you, Son of man, do not be afraid of them, nor be afraid of their words, though thistles and thorns are with you, and you dwell among scorpions. Do not be afraid of their words or discouraged by their looks, for they are a rebellious house. And you shall speak words to them, whether they hear or whether they refuse, for they are rebellious. And you, Son of man, hear what I am speaking to you. Do not be rebellious like that rebellious house. Open your mouth and eat what I am giving you. And I looked and saw a hand stretched out, and see a scroll of a book was in it, and he spread it before me. And it was written on the inside and on the outside, and written on it were lamentations and mournings and woe. Okay. So, all that to say that the voice of the Almighty is like the voice of many waters, is like the voice of the wings, is like the tumult, like the noise of is a tumult like the noise of an army. Intimidating. It's quite intimidating to be in the presence of Elohim. If you've ever actually heard that voice, there's a stiffening. A stiffening that happens. We're going to go to Ezekiel 17, but first we're going to look at Ezekiel 43, verse 12. And I know that we've looked at these before, but
43 verse 2, I mean. And he led me to the gate facing east. Yehezkel's at the temple at this point. And see, the esteem of the Elohim of Yisrael came from the way of the east, and his voice was like the sound of many waters, and the earth shone from his esteem. And it was like the appearance of the vision which I saw, like the vision which I saw when he came to destroy the city. And the visions were like the vision which I saw by the river Kabar. And I fell on my face. So, the river Kabar is where Ezekiel's at in chapter 1. And it came to be in the 30th year, in the 4th month, on the 5th of the new moon, as I was among the exiles by the river Kabar, the heavens were opened, and I saw visions of Elohim. So this is a direct, he's like, I'm reliving this now. And the esteem of Yahuwah came into the house by way of the gate facing east. And the Spirit took me up and brought me into the inner courtyard, and see, the esteem of Yahuwah filled the house. And I heard someone speaking to me from the house, while a man stood beside me. And he said to me, Son of man, this is the place of my throne, and the place of the soles of my feet. When I dwell in the midst of the children of Israel forever, and the house of Israel shall no longer defile my set-apart name, they nor their sovereigns, by their whoring and by the corpses of their sovereigns on their high places. When they place their threshold by my threshold, and their doorpost by my doorpost, with a wall between them and me, they defiled my set-apart name by the abominations which they have done. So I consumed them in my displeasure. Now let them put their whoring and the corpses of their sovereigns far away from me, and I shall dwell in their midst forever. Son of man, explain the house to the house of Israel, and when they are ashamed of their crookedness, they shall measure the measurements. And since they shall be ashamed of all that they did, make known to them the design of the house and its structure and its exits and its entrances, its entire design and all its laws and all its forms and all its Torah, and write it down before their eyes, so that they observe its entire design and all its laws and shall do them. This is the Torah of the house. Upon the mountaintop, all the boundary of it all around is most set apart. See, this is the Torah of the house. And these are the measurements of the slaughter place in cubits. That cubit being 1 cubit and a handbreadth, and the base 1 cubit high and 1 cubit wide, with a rim all around its edge of 1 span, and this is the upper part of the slaughter place. Okay, and then we get the measurements. And from the base on the ground to the lower ledge, 2 cubits, and the width of the ledge 1 cubit, from the smaller ledge to the larger ledge 4 cubits, and the width of the ledge 1 cubit. And the hearth is 4 cubits high, and 4 horns extending upward from the slaughter place hearth. And the slaughter place hearth is 12 cubits long and 12 wide, square at its 4 corners. And the ledge is 14 long and 14 wide on its 4 sides, with a rim and of half a cubit around it, and its base 1 cubit all around. And its steps face east. And he said to me, Son of man, thus said the Master Yahuwah, these are the laws for the slaughter place on the day when it is made for ascending offering on it and for sprinkling blood on it. Okay, we're going to go to Job. We're going to go to Job, and we're going to go to Job.
What I thought was 18. Okay. 23:9. See, I go forward, but he is not, and backward, but I do not perceive him. To the left where he is working, but I do not see. He turns to the right, but I do not see. Okay. And then... it's got to be in Job 23. Job 18:20. Those in the west are astonished at his day, as in the east are frightened. As those in the east are frightened. As Yahweh is coming through this temple here, he's entering through the east gate. And so, if you're on the east, you're seeing him first, and you're frightened. And then as you're on the west more, you're astonished at what you're seeing. As he gets closer, you become more frightened. As you become centrally east of him. And as I look forward, what does it say? He is not, and backward, but I do not perceive him. So the forward is to forward is generally north. And so in your going north, you're walking toward you're keeping your forward direction, but it's not necessarily toward Elohim. But the fear of Elohim on the east is wisdom and understanding. And then, if you go south and you don't perceive him, you're fucked, because you're just going into the devil's lair. But don't worry, because Yeshua has the keys to Sheol and death, so he can go, hi, I'm here. Pick up my friend Dylan. And then, so the other place that we're going to go right now is Ezekiel 17. And the word of Yahuwah came to me, saying, Son of man, put forth a riddle and speak a parable to the house of Israel. And you shall say, Thus said the Master Yahuwah, the great eagle with large wings of long pinions covered with feathers of various colors came to Lebanon and took the top of the cedar. He plucked off the topmost of its young twigs and brought it to a land of traders. In a city of merchants he placed it. He also took some of the seed of the land and planted it in a field for seed. He took it by many waters, set it like a willow tree. So it grew and became a low-spreading vine. Its branches turned toward him, and its roots were under it. And it became a vine and brought forth branches and sent out shoots. And there was another great eagle with large wings and many feathers. And see, this vine bent its roots toward him and stretched its branches toward him to water it, away from the beds where it was planted. It was planted in a good field by many waters to bring forth branches and to bear fruit, to be a splendid vine. Say, Thus said the Master Yahuwah, Is it going to thrive? Is he not going to pull up its roots and cut off its fruit and let it wither? All of its sprouting leaves wither, without great power or many people to pluck it up by its roots. See, it is planted. Is it going to thrive? Would it not utterly wither when the east wind touches it? Withers in the beds where it grows, that east wind. And the word of Yahuwah came to me, saying, Please say to the rebellious house, Do you not know what these mean? Say, See, the sovereign of Babel went to Jerusalem and took its sovereign and heads and brought them with him to Babel. And he took one of the royal seed and made a covenant with him and put him under oath. And he took away the mighty of the land so that the rain would be brought low and not lift itself up, but guard his covenant that it might stand. But he rebelled against him by sending his messengers to Mitzrayim to give him horses and many people. Shall he thrive? Shall he escape who is doing these? And shall he break a covenant and still escape? As I live, declares the Master Yahuwah, in the place where the sovereign dwells, who set him up to reign, whose oath he despised, and whose covenant he broke with him in the midst of Babel, he shall die. And Pharaoh with his great army and great company is not going to help him in battle, when they heap up a siege mound and build a wall to cut off many beings. And he despised the oath by breaking the covenant, and see, he has given his hand, and he has done all this. He is not going to escape. Therefore, thus said the Master Yahuwah, As I live, my oath which has been despised, and my covenant which has been broken, shall I not put it on his own head? And I shall spread my net over him, and he shall be taken in my snare, and I shall bring him to Babel, and enter into judgment with him there for the trespass which he committed against me. And all his fugitives with all his bands fall by the sword, and those who are left be scattered to every wind, and you shall know that I, Yahuwah, have spoken. Thus said the Master Yahuwah, And I shall take of the top of the highest cedar, and set it out, and I myself shall pluck off a tender one from the topmost of its young twigs, and plant it on a high and lofty mountain. On the mountain height of Yisrael I plant it, and it shall bring forth branches and bear fruit, and become a cedar, and under it shall dwell birds of every wing, in the shadow of its branches they shall dwell. And all the trees of the field shall know that I, Yahuwah, have brought down the high tree and exalted the low tree, dried up the green tree, and made the dry tree flourish. I, Yahuwah, have spoken and shall do it. Yahuwah don't give a fuck. He gonna do it. The voice of Yahuwah is breaking the cedars. Yahuwah is breaking the cedars of Lebanon in pieces. So this literally is the prophecy of Ezekiel 17:3. And you shall say, Thus said the Master Yahuwah, the great eagle with the large wings of long pinions covered with feathers of various colors came to Lebanon and took the top of the cedar. So David, we talked a little bit about timeline. In 26 and 27, David did not know Ezekiel. Their timelines did not overlap, and David was writing these psalms probably unwittingly in prophecy. David was one of the mightiest men that Yahuwah ever put on this earth, and that is why Yeshua HaMashiach is of his seed, of his lineage. I say unwittingly, I don't know that it's unwittingly. Maybe he was having visions, but a lot of this just seems like expression of spirit, and he stayed so well in the spirit and so well in the word of Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh, everything that he did living for the existence of Yahweh, that he just was given so much more than others, than any other person, any other people. And he makes them skip like a calf, Lebanon and Siron like a young wild ox. Picture this like little lamb hoppling around. So cute. The voice of Yahweh cuts through the flames of fire. Yeah, well, we saw in Ezekiel that I think he takes the appearance of flames of fire. Ezekiel 1:27, and from the appearance of his waist and upward I saw what looked like glowing metal with the appearance of fire all around within it. And from the appearance of his waist and downward I saw what looked like fire and brightness all around it. Cuts through flames of fire. I shall send my messenger, a cloud by day and a column of fire by night. The voice of Yahweh shakes the wilderness. Yahweh shakes the wilderness of Kadesh. I'm certain that there is more prophecy for that I don't have in my pocket right now. The voice of Yahweh makes the deer give birth. That is a fact from Job 39:1. Do you know the time when the wild mountain goats bear young, or do you observe when the deer gives birth? They bow down, they bring forth their young, their labor pains are ended. Their young ones are thriving, they grow up in the field, they shall leave and shall not return to them. I don't know. Are we to believe that David had Job? Or is this an expression, or is this prophecy, or, we don't know. We don't know. I don't know how these books got added, like that they were decided that they were added. I'm really not sure, as they were. I'll look. I'll grab my other, I'll grab my big history Bible. And we'll see what kind of timeline Psalms. I know that you can't really date these, but see where David is when Samuel was written, and compare it with Job. And strips the forest bare. That's somewhere too. And I'm just picturing like the leaves coming off of the trees. Revelation 18:8. Because of this, her plagues shall come in one day, death and mourning and scarcity of food. And she shall be burned up with fire, because Yahweh Elohim who judges her is mighty. And the sovereigns of the earth who committed whoring and lived riotously with her shall weep and mourn over her when they see the smoke of her burning, standing at a distance for fear of her torture, saying, Woe, woe, the great city Babel, the mighty city, because your judgment has come in 1 hour. And the merchants of the of the earth weep and mourn over her, because no one buys their merchandise anymore. Merchandise of gold and silver and precious stones and pearls and fine linen and purple and silk and scarlet and all citron wood and every object of ivory and every object of most precious wood and bronze and iron and marble and cinnamon and incense and fragrant oil and frankincense and wine and oil and fine flour and wheat and cattle and sheep and horses and carriages and bodies and lives of men. And the fruit that you're being longed for has gone from you, and all your riches and splendor are lost to you, and you shall find them no more, not at all. The merchants of these, those who became rich by her, shall stand at a distance for fear of her torture, weeping and mourning, saying, Woe, woe, the great city that was dressed in fine linen and purple and scarlet, and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls. For in 1 hour such great riches was laid waste, and every shipmaster and every passenger and sailors, and as many as worked the sea for their living, stood at a distance, and cried out when they saw the smoke of her burning, and saying, What is like this great city? And they threw dust on their heads and cried out, weeping and mourning, and saying, Woe, woe, the great city in which all who had ships on the sea became rich by her wealth. For in 1 hour she was laid waste. Rejoice over her, O heaven, and you set apart emissaries and prophets, for Elohim has completely avenged you on her. And one mighty messenger picked up a stone like a great millstone and threw it into the sea, saying, With such a rush the great city Babel shall be thrown down and shall not be found any more at all. And the sound of harpists and musicians and flutists and trumpeters shall not be heard in you any more at all, and no craftsman of any trade shall be found in you any more at all. And the sound of a millstone shall not be heard in you any more at all. And the light of a lamp shall not shine in you any more at all. And the voice of the bridegroom and the bride shall not be heard in you any more at all. For your merchants were the great ones of the earth, for by your drug sorcery all the nations were led astray. And in her was found the blood of prophets and set apart ones, and of all who were slain on the earth. And in his esteem everyone, and in his call everyone says esteem. Yahuwah sat enthroned at the flood, and Yahuwah sits as sovereign forever. Yahuwah gives strength to his people. Yahuwah blesses his people with peace. Praise Yahuwah.